Money Club, baby.
Dirty, sexy, slinky thing. Power over all with the love you bring. Spinning from your mind control. Shuffling around this deep.
Shift R. Okay. Let's hopefully this time Adobe Premiere works when I render out the video, because if I somehow have to do some shit to try at least, because if I have to do just audio only, then fuck it. Alright, what's up everybody? Welcome to another episode of the J Money Talks podcast. I'm your host, Big J Money here, and today we're doing welcome to episode number 27 of the J Money Talks podcast. We're going to get started on two things. So first, we got the Super Bowl. Okay, we got to talk about the Super Bowl. Of course, that happened. We also got to talk about UFC 270. No, we got to talk about UFC. And then we got to talk about a couple other things. So, at least, so first, actually recorded an episode of the podcast yesterday. Went an hour and a half. Everything worked good. The audio came out fine. But trying to get the video portion out for YouTube somehow was a tricky thing, because every time I tried to either render a video, somehow at the last possible moment, where it was like almost ready to go, somehow a random error pops up. And I'm like, and somehow like the computer like started like crashing, sort of kind of like crashed. Or the program kind of crashed and everything got screwed up. So I'm hoping it doesn't do that again. But if it does, then it's like, well, you guys are just going to have to see us. This thing's just going to be on an audio podcast. We're just going to go in audio form for a bit. Or until we figure out something with video. So hopefully this doesn't happen again. But I'm not worry about it. So let's begin. First of all, we got the Super Bowl 56, and it was live from Los Angeles, SoFi. One thing I will say before we begin, I know this is going to sound crazy, but like, bruh, Super Bowl tickets are expensive as fuck, for real. Like, because this is, if you want to know how much the tickets were for the very first Super Bowl, it was like $12 back in like 1968, 69. Now, I mean, adjusting for inflation now, that's like $100, which is actually interesting. But $100 alone probably isn't. $100 is not much. Because actually, according to Yahoo Sports, it actually is like 2% of the price for an actual ticket to Super Bowl. Because the average Super Bowl ticket for Sunday's game was $5,915. Like almost $6,000. Which is actually nuts. That's like a down payment on a decent car, or like down payment on a decent car, or like a down payment on like a house or some shit. Like, that is some wild shit I've spent. And actually, $6,000 actually was like, that's almost the amount I spent on the apartment in game stuff. Like, I pretty much spent that type of money. So the fact that it costs as much for my apartment is nuts. That's what I'm hoping next year is going to be, they're cheaper, because I'm hoping if I do go next year, and if Ravens make it next year's Super Bowl, I'm buying those tickets. So, but moving on, let's go with Super Bowl 56. We had Super Bowl 56. We have talked about, of course, Cincinnati Bengals traveling to take on the LA Rams. What the heck? Oh, they're fireworks. I was wondering what this was. I was like, it's neat. I'm looking at the score I'm trying to go to. Let me go to ESPN real quick. So, we had SoFi Stadium. SoFi Stadium was the name of the place. LA Rams took on the Cincinnati Bengals. LA Rams very much were at their home stadium, but was designated as the visitors. Visitors as designated as the visitors. So let's go with the first. Let me find ESPN. Where's the ESPN shiz? Here it is. Oh, this is someone else. Let's see. I didn't want to score thing. That's a news story. Here it is. So how we start off? So in the first quarter, like Matthew Stafford, pretty much playing in his first Super Bowl getting a chance to win his first ring after spending 12 seasons with the Detroit Lions, finally getting it in his first season with the LA Rams. LA Rams takes on young Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, who pretty much made probably one of the most improbable playoff runs this season. Led by a strong offense led by Joe Mixon and receivers T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, C.J. Uzomah. Powerful defense led by Logan Wilson, Sam Hubbard, Von Bell, Jesse Bates, Shelby Awuzie, Mike Hilton, B.J. Hill, Trey Flowers, Trey Hendrickson, and a surprising Eli Apple. And we'll actually get to Eli Apple in a bit. On the LA side, supporting cast for that was Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson Jr., Sonny Michel, Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham Jr., who's actually playing his first Super Bowl, Van Jefferson, Samson, just to name a few. Another name is also Tyler Higbee, who surprisingly didn't play in this game. And also led by a defense led by Darius Williams, Ernest Jones, of course Aaron Donald, Von Miller. They picked up from trade line Jalen Ramsey, also returning Eric Weddle. Also, we can't forget on the offensive line, Andrew Whitworth, 40-year-old, who is also this year's Walter Payton Man of the Year, and also a former Cincinnati Bengal, which is a key thing. So, in order for Andrew Whitworth to win his very first Super Bowl ring, he would have to beat his former team to do it. So, it is going to be somehow. So how do we get to Amir? Let's see. Let's see here. That would be the big one. Let's go into the first drive. Let's go into the first thing. First drive would be a 5, and would not start. First couple drives would start off small back and forth. Cincinnati would actually try Rams would punt after after 5 plays and only 1 yard to gain, average of 1 yard net yard of gain. Next first drive was the Bengals going 4 and out. They would surprisingly turn over on downs, as they would actually end up going forward on a 4th and 1 at LA's 49. They actually was on a 3rd and 1 at the LA 49. Samaje Perine would gain no yard, would get no gain on a 3rd and 1 at the LA 49, and Joe Burrow would throw incomplete to Jamar Chase on that 4th and 1, which would give the Rams the ball at prime territory. And from there, the Rams ended up doing well, as Matthew Stafford would follow to Cooper Kupp for 20 yards to Cincinnati 24 at Cincinnati 44 on a 3rd and 4. And then 3 plays later, 3rd and 3 at Cincinnati 17, Matthew Stafford would find Odell Beckham Jr. for a 17-yard touchdown, and he would actually moonwalk in the end zone on an amazing play. After a back and forth drive of punts, Cincinnati would actually get the ball at their own 30 and would actually get a big play from a big 13-yard gain from Joe Mixon on the first play. And then on the second play, Joe Burrow would find Jamar Chase deep for 46 yards and it would travel to the LA 11 from the 43 of Cincinnati. After 4 incomplete tries from Burrow to Higgins, Burrow to Mixon, and Burrow to T. Higgins, which could have been a touchdown, but there was apparently a questionable on that drive. There was a questionable pass interference that they called, which would set up Evan McPherson to kick a 29-field goal, which would lead the LA Rams to the LA Rams lead, where the LA Rams will lead 7-3. Following the field goal on the next drive, we would have on 3rd and 11 at LA's 24, Matthew Stafford would find Odell Beckham for a short pass, and he would get pushed out of Cincinnati for 35 yards for a 35-yard gain. Then Matthew Stafford would next play scrimmage at the Cincinnati 41. Matthew Stafford would find Darrell Henderson and for a 25-yard gain. And then LA would call a timeout, and then 2 plays later, on 2nd and 5 at Cincinnati 11, Matthew Stafford would find his favorite target to Cooper Kupp for 11 yards, and on the next play, for the extra point, somehow the punter, Johnny Hekker, would somehow fail to corral the snap. Would actually fail to corral the snap, and pretty much ended up having to throw the football, which ended up failing, which would have been intercepted by the Bengals by Jermaine Pratt, and actually he would get taken down. So basically, no points were gained at that point. So the Rams would lead 13-3 on the very next drive, which is actually one of the best drives the Bengals had in this game so far. I think the Bengals would have all the game. A 12-play, 75-yard drive would start from Joe Burrow finding Tyler Boyd at Cincinnati 36 for 11 yards. On 2 plays later, 2nd and 7 on Cincinnati 39, Joe Burrow would find Jamar Chase to Cincinnati 49 for 10 yards. Joe Mixon would then on the next play would rumble to the LA 37 for 14 yards. Third and 6 at the LA 33. Schobert would find T. Higgins to the LA 19 for 14 yards for a 14-yard gain. Then this is actually on 32. Jamar Chase would actually end up running for 4 yards to get LA 7 on a 32 at LA Rams 11. And then 2 plays there on 2nd and goal. T. Higgins would catch a pass from not Joe Burrow, but Joe Mixon for a 6-yard touchdown. And it would actually pull the Bengals within 3, 13-10. Then on the drive, the Rams would start driving down the field. A bit. 2nd and 4 from LA 31. Matthew Stafford would find Van Jefferson to the LA 34 for 13 yards. On 2nd and 4 from LA 31. Big 2 plays later on 2nd and 9 at the LA 45 with less than 4 minutes left in the quarter in the first half. Matthew Stafford would try to find Odell Beckham for a pass, but it was fall incomplete, and Odell Beckham would get injured during the play, which is a big knee injury. Apparently, it is a torn ACL, which sadly will make his offseason be a whole lot longer because of that injury. So, hopefully he is coming back. He can come back next year. Next, on a 3rd and 9, Matthew Stafford would pass to Hopkins to Cincinnati 39 for 16 yards from LA 45. 3 plays. 1st and 10 from Cincinnati 39. There would be a false start penalty on the Rams by Blanton, which actually... And then 3 plays later, 3rd and 14 from Cincinnati 33. Matthew Stafford would throw deep for Van Jefferson, and it would be intercepted by Jesse Bates at the Cincinnati in the end zone, which it caused a touchback. But there was a penalty on the Bengals for unsportsmanlike conduct, as Vernon Hargraves, who wasn't in the game at all, wasn't dressed to play in the game, ended up stepping onto the field during that celebration and would end up would cost that team a 10-yard penalty, which I'm like, why would you come out to the field and you were not even dressed? You're not dressed or anything. You just stepped on the field. Like, bro, at that point, I'm like, if I am the coaches and the owners, I'm already ready to jump that. I'm ready to just jump that dude. Like, I'm ready to jump in that dude. But because of that, Cincinnati would have to start from their own 10-yard line instead of at their own 10-yard line because of that penalty. Apparently, and that would cause some trouble for them both because both teams would punt after both teams would end up punting and will go in halftime on that 13-10 lead. So next would be next thing we gotta talk about is the halftime show. Which is by a lot of people is probably among the best of all time. My thoughts on the whole halftime show. This is like for one halftime show I really was interested in watching because it had all the music that pretty much me and my family just all enjoyed a ton of. So it was actually a thing that actually made me enjoy. So I enjoyed watching it, especially the Eminem portion. I know they were going to do much. They were going to give them all. There was going to be a lot of like Eminem stuff. I knew Not Afraid was probably well, Lose Yourself was probably the one song they were going to allow him to do. Like, they weren't going to allow him to do anything else than, like, they could have, like, allowed him to do Not Afraid, I think. That isn't as bad. But, I mean, with the whole show overall, it was pretty good. Like, it had, like, about everyone, Snoop Dogg, 50 Cent, Dr. Dre played everyone was playing all their classics. Mary J. Blige did amazing. Good show. It was a good halftime show. I do want to rewatch it again because I think there were some parts that kind of were that because my internet, my streaming stick was buffering like crazy. So we go into the second half. Bengals would get the ball, start off the second half, and basically they decided to start off really well as Joe Burrow would throw a 75-yard bomb to T. Higgins, who surprisingly got away with an obvious face mask on Jalen Ramsey, and just like that, Cincinnati would get the lead 17-13. So Rams need to answer back as Matthew Stafford would try to throw to Squirnick, and it got ricocheted into the hands of CJ Shadobi Awuzie at the LA 32, and now when you look at it, the Bengals have now more momentum on their side. Have all the momentum on their side. Two plays later on third and 11 at LA's 32, Joe Burrow would find Jamar Chase, the LA 22 for 10 yards. Now 4th and 1 LA 22. Instead of trying to get to field goal, trying to keep this thing to get 7, Burrow would scramble up the middle to LA 18 for 4 yards, just giving up fresh set of downs. First and 10. Mixon will go for gain for 2 yards. On the next play, Burrow would find CJ Uzomah, who pretty much came back to play after NCL sprain against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, to the LA Rams 5 yards. 3rd and 3, Burrow looking back to pass and would eventually get sacked by Aaron Donald for a 9-yard loss, which is among the 7 sacks he actually had in that game. Basically tied for the most in Super Bowl history. Tied with Roger Staubach for most in Super Bowl history with 7, which would set up Evan McPherson for a free or field goal, and it was good. The Bengals now lead by a 7 points. Very next drive, after the Rams would start driving down the field as on 38 on LA's 27. Matthew Stafford would find Darrell Henderson for a 15-yard gain. He would be pushed out of bounds. Two plays later on 2nd and 9 at the LA 43, Matthew Stafford would find Cooper Kupp to the Cincinnati 44 for 13 yards. Very next play on 1st and 10. Stafford would find Hopkins for 16-yard gain to the Cincinnati 28. Next play on 1st 10. Matthew Stafford would find Squirnick for a 7-yard gain. We have pushed out of bounds at the Cincinnati 21. 2 plays later on a 3rd and 5. Matthew Stafford would try to find Cooper Kupp, but it's thrown incomplete, which will set up Matt Gay for a 41-yard field goal, and it's good. Rams lead the Rams 20-16. Following that, both teams would go 3 and out for the next 2 to 3. Would go 3 and out for at least the next 4 drives. Both teams will go 3 and out. Cincinnati would start getting some momentum as on the Rams, as Bengals next drive, as we're early into the fourth quarter on a 2nd and 9 at Cincinnati 17. Joe Burrow would find Tyler Boyd to Cincinnati 33 for 16 yards. 3 plays later on 39. Joe Burrow would get sacked at the Cincinnati 28 for 6 yards by Von Miller. Burrow would end up getting injured during the play. He ends up limping with his knee, off the field with his knee. He pretty much called off the medical staff. Pretty much he was like, "You are not taking me out this game. I'm staying in." Next drive, LA would go 3 and out. And then Cincinnati would get the ball back 20-16 with 9:58 left in the fourth quarter. Joe Mixon would run up the middle from 16 to 28. Cincinnati 28. Next play, Joe Mixon would run 8 more yards to the Cincinnati 36. It was get stopped for no gain on 2nd and 2. 3rd and 2, Burrow would find Chris Evans for 3 yards. For the first down. 1st and 10 at the Cincinnati 39. Joe Burrow would throw to Mixon, who would get pushed out of bounds for a 3-yard loss. Very next play, Joe Mixon would run for 4 yards. Run for 4 yards to make this a 3rd and 9. A crucial 3rd and 9 for the Bengals. Now, before this game, Tyler Boyd throughout the entire season has not dropped one pass throughout the season. So, Joe Burrow throws to Tyler Boyd and it would fall incomplete. And this play was actually a big one because Tyler Boyd was already, if Boyd already caught it, he already got 6 yards to gain. And if he kept moving he had probably a good chance of getting that first down. And understand, this would have ended up extending this drive more, which actually would have gave LA less time on their probably eventual future drive. Possible there was a chance LA may or may not have touched that ball at all, because there is a chance they could have kept this ball. But sadly, because of that, Bengals would have to punt from their own 40. And now, Matthew Stafford with probably the biggest drive of the game and pretty much on the biggest game of the year. And basically, Matthew Stafford would prove to one. 1st and 10 from the LA 21. Matthew Stafford would find Hopkins to the LA 30 for 9 yards. Next play, Stafford would throw incomplete to Skornick. 3rd and 1. Bengals defense holding strong as they stop Cam Akers from a yard. Now 4th and 1 from their own 40. They would give Cooper Kupp the ball on a motion play, and it would get to a 7-yard gain to the LA 37, which gives LA another set of downs. 2nd and 10 from LA 37 after an incomplete pass to Cam Akers from Stafford. Stafford would find Cooper Kupp to the LA 45 for 8 yards. 3rd and 2 from the LA 45. Stafford would find Hopkins to the Cincinnati 49 for 6 yards. Very next play, Stafford. 2 plays later on a 2nd and 7 Matthew Stafford would find Cooper Kupp for a 22-yard gain to Cincinnati 24 on a no-look pass. Pretty much a whole no-look pass. No-look pass. Next, Stafford. On the very next play, Stafford would find Kupp again for an 8-yard gain to 16. Next, second and 2. Cam Akers would run up the middle to Cincinnati 8 for 8-yard gain, which would set up the 2-minute warning. Now, this is where everything begins. This is where, in these last 2 minutes, you will find some of these really random calls happening. These calls would begin to happen. Would begin to rear its ugly head. So, first and goal from the 8. Matthew Stafford would try to find Van Jefferson. Pass would fall incomplete. Next play to Darrell Henderson. Matthew Stafford will fall incomplete. Next, third and goal at the 8. This is all free 4-down territory here. Basically, the goal is basically a field goal is not going to cut it. This one you need to get a touchdown here. Next, Matthew Stafford would throw to Cooper Kupp, and a pass would fall incomplete. It was covered by Logan Wilson and DJ Reader with, I believe, a hit. And on the quarterback, playing a role. But then there would be a penalty on Logan Wilson on a questionable phantom holding call. Which is a kind of a phantom call, which is kind of one of those ticky-tack 50-50 calls. But and just because of that, the penalty would not only move the Rams 4 yards, but also give him a fresh set of downs to continue. Next. So on the very next play, first and goal from a Cincinnati 4. Stafford would find Cooper Kupp for a 4-yard touchdown, but it would be penalized as LA would get called for holding. However, Cincinnati would get called for Von Bell would get called for unnecessary roughness, which offsets both penalties. So that means the whole play no longer counts. So first and goal from Cincinnati 4. Stafford would try to find Cooper Kupp again, but this time another pass interference call. And guess who ended up getting the call? Eli Apple, who is pretty much a consistent, horrendously bad cornerback. So, next play. Now, first and goal at Cincinnati 1. Stafford would try to at least sneak it in, and he would get stopped by Jermaine Pratt and Sam Hubbard up the middle. Cincinnati would call timeout to at least save some clock for eventual next play. And on the very next play, second goal, Stafford to Kupp on a touchdown, and the guy in coverage was Eli Apple, 1-on-1, which I question that play a whole lot because that is the last person I would have put to cover. That would have been the last person I would have put to cover probably the best wide receiver at that point in time. So, Cincinnati now needs to score. Now, in order to tie, at least get to like the LA 41 to the LA 35. At least the LA 35 to tie, or at least try to go down the full 75 yards to at least score, to at least win. Tie and bring this game to overtime, or at least go all the way to score for a touchdown in the end. So, first and 10 from a 25, Joe Burrow would find Jamar Chase First sharp 17-yard gain to the Cincinnati 42. Very next play, Burrow would find Tyler Boyd to the LA 49 for 9 yards. 9 yards. Very next play, second huddle from no huddle. Immediately from no huddle. Joe Burrow would throw to Jamar Chase, incomplete on a deep ball. Pretty much stop the clock. Stop the clock and set over your timeout. Next, 3rd and 1 from LA 49. 49. Rams would trot Bengals. Burrow hands off to Samaje Perine, and he would get stopped for no gain, especially by Aaron Donald. Making the big play, pulling Perine back so he doesn't stop his any forward progress from happening. Cincinnati would call a timeout. Game on the line, 4th and 1. Burrow goes back to pass. Aaron Donald chasing after him, almost gets him, and would throw it in the last possible second to Perine, and it falls incomplete. And the game is in pretty much, and just like that, Aaron Donald would put the dead Namekian into the mausoleum because my man put the nail in the coffin for Cincinnati. And Matthew Stafford all has to do was take one more knee, and it was over. For Rams are your Super Bowl champions. It is now champions. Sean McVay is now the youngest head coach to win a championship, and Eli Apple pretty much. And now Joe Burrow pretty much played for the first time now in 13 seasons. Matthew Stafford wins his first championship. Finally wins his first championship after 13 seasons in the league. Cooper Kupp wins his first ring and also wins the Super Bowl MVP. Jalen Ramsey, former Jacksonville Jaguar, wins his first ring. Wins his very first ring. Aaron Donald finally gets that first ring, cements his legacy as one of the greatest defensive tackles of all time. Von Miller also wins his second ring. Odell Beckham Jr., despite the early injury, he finally wins his very first ring. First ring. Sean McVay ends up becoming the youngest head coach. Would become the youngest head coach in the league. Youngest head coach to win a Super Bowl at 36 years. The Rams would not only win their first NFL title since the 1999 season, this is also the first time they won it in LA since 1951. And they did in their own home stadium, which cost $5 billion. Seriously, what the fuck? So, which actually also makes the Rams the second host team to win the championship after Tampa Bay done it last year. Immediately last year. So it is going to be the big thing. And the big thing is Cincinnati. About the Cincinnati Bengals. Were penalized the second fewest times and for the fewest yards in the regular season. But these few flags end up costing them very, very badly. Anyway, so for the Rams. So that is going to be the Rams, and yes, the Rams are now going to be is now sadly the end, and that is sadly the end of the NFL season. So whatever notes to take on this game, Rams end up doing well. The big thing that ended it up, helped them out and well to keep them into this thing, was pretty much stop them from scoring. Was pretty much defense keeping them in that game to the final drive, on giving them a chance to at least on that final drive finally make that thing. And also defense was the thing that helped them actually end up, and defense helped them secure that win with that amazing stop. So the question is going to be that defensive holding call but the big thing is that this game, it somehow is still slightly mired in some controversy because of those last couple penalties in the end. At the very end. So both teams end up playing virtually identical to match up, virtually the identical, like exact. The big thing is Cincinnati had the better rushing. The big thing is going to be the biggest cause is the penalties. Why there were only 6 penalties called. 4 are on the Bengals for 31 yards, 2 for the Rams because that is one of the big things is the past 58 minutes of this game, there was literally little to no penalties called whatsoever. It was just relatively quiet. The refs kept their whistles quiet, kept their whistles shut. Didn't even pull out their whistles much at all. It only took until towards the very end where basically the refs decided to jump in at the last possible minute. Do I think that the game was by a controversy will go down as one classics? Yes, I say the overall if I say the overall experience, the halftime show was pretty much a 10 out of 10. I say the game itself, it's going to be, I say it's an 8 out of 10. It's something you will rewatch up until that ending point, because that's where, up until the last bit of that drive, which is going to be a little mired because of the calls, some of the questionable calls. It is still a thing, there is because that's the thing, during the season, you kind of saw a trend of mostly defensive players getting penalized more than offensive penalties. You're seeing more, there was more of that blatantly happening throughout the thing. Especially, we can't gloss over the fact about the whole thing with taunting. Taunting was a big thing. Was another thing which I'm hoping they actually would start toning that down, at least provide better points of emphasis on that. At least the roughing passers penalty is still very vague, so I'm hoping during the off-season meetings they actually start looking at some of this stuff and okay, we need to change a more point of emphasis, because some of this stuff is kind of BS to me anyways. So that's what I'm hoping on it. So right now I give this Super Bowl overall 8. I say an 8.5 out of 10. It's pretty much, it's this halftime show is amazing. I don't know how all the commercials were, because I might have to look and see what commercials did good or not. I mean, there were some that were interesting, some were kind of hit or miss. The NFL one was, at first I was confused, and then I was okay, now this made more sense, because towards the end, because it didn't show much of what is this shit on, and I'm I say there was like a couple that were good, some couple were like, eh. And I'm like, but you just like, but I was like, okay. Overall, the experience was like pretty good. Like I was like, I actually enjoyed it. Like I pretty much, I watched it at home at the house with the in the apartment with the family. So me and my sister, my dad, and for a good 2.5 half and maybe 3 quarters. I pretty much, my niece, pretty much, my sister's like 7 month old. I think no, actually 6 month old. Actually, it's about 6 7 months old. Uh, German Shepherd, probably pretty much was watching the game. So yeah, it was all overall good season. Overall, game was pretty good. Everything, the whole experience was pretty much a good thing. But I'm just gonna say it is gonna be mired because of that. So, who are now the top 10 teams? The top team, the Super Bowl 57. Let me see if I can find those odds again, because I think I have them already ready up. Super Bowl 57 odds. Now, the new odds are now currently, as of right now, the current favorites is now the Kansas City Chiefs, followed by the Buffalo Bills. The Rams are plus 1,000, third place. Bengals are not far behind at fourth. San Francisco 49ers is at 1,400. Buccaneers are plus 1,500. Packers are plus 1,600. Next are the Dallas Cowboys at plus 1,700. The highest rated non-playoff team from this last season is the Broncos because they are pretty much connected to the Aaron Rodgers trade rumors. So Aaron Rodgers trade rumors. So they have a chance of having a stack, and their roster is kind of stacked. So if Rodgers does join the Broncos, it would make a huge impact with that team for him. So the lowest rated team to make the playoffs during the season is the Steelers. The Steelers do got a strong receiving core and defense, but the big thing is they need to get a better quarterback to replace Ben Roethlisberger. If they can get someone solid, either through free agency, through some trade rumors, or from anything, they can actually be a good contender. So now this is like the initial odds that came out probably not too long after the championship was raised. My Ravens are plus 2,200 at the moment, so I think that's 22-1 odds. I'm thinking that's what it is. I know the Chiefs is like. I think the Chiefs said it was like 13-2. Let me see if I can find the other one, because it's like this plus stuff. I don't know how to calculate that. What's the 13 to... Let me see what this does if I put it into... Is it just this? It doesn't show anything. Well... Oh, there's DraftKings. So it goes into DraftKings. So why isn't that showing up? Alright, going back to 57 odds. Maybe Sports Line? Nope, that's still on that plus shiz. Which I have no idea how to calculate any of that stuff, so I'm trying to figure out how do you because I never understood that Sports Line stuff. If you can just give me the horse things, like the 1301 and the I'm just gonna. But yeah, next year's Super Bowl will be in. Now, next year's Super Bowl is going to be in Arizona, Glendale, Arizona. So, who knows? There may be a chance if trends somehow, if this becomes a trend, that means the Arizona Cardinals, you have a chance of being that third straight host team to actually win a Super Bowl in your home stadium. So, but the question is, will Kyler Murray be your quarterback? Because according to reports, there is acrimony amongst him and the Cardinals station. They apparently, according to like both teams, both of them have an issue. Both of them have like acrimony issues that came out during the Super Bowl. During the Super Bowl right now, as I'm looking on here. I think this is something that ended up being leaked. According to, because recently Murray ended up scrubbing any reference of the Cardinals from his Instagram account. He's actually says he's frustrated with franchise, and he was actually embarrassed by the team's 34-11 playoff loss to the eventual champion Rams in the wild card weekend. And he believes he has been made the scapegoat of that whole situation. And the big thing was the Cardinals have their own concerns about Murray, which sources describing the 2019 number one overall pick as self-centered, immature, and someone who points fingers. Currently, the coach, Cliff Kingsbury, is said to be self-scouting, where he can provide better alternatives to help Murray. Meanwhile, select veterans on the team hope to reach out to Murray on how the 24-year-old can better handle adversity. In fact, former Cardinals wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald, he wasn't sure what to make of the quarterback's social media move, but said Tuesday he hopes two sides get whatever it is they both want. Fitzgerald said this: "I haven't talked to Kyler in a while, but he looked good in the Pro Bowl. Looked like he was having a great time, throwing touchdowns out there. I just hope everything works out the way both sides want to work it out. That's really what it's all about. It's all about for me. I love Kyler. I love the Cardinals, and I want the best for everybody. Despite the acrimony, the Cardinals expect some things to calm down and for Murray to be the quarterback at the present and the future. Murray is, however, going to be heading into the final year of his rookie contract, but Arizona actually has the end of the year, has until May 2nd to pick up his 5th-year option. However, Murray is also eligible to negotiate now a new deal. So now that he has completed his 3rd season with the Cardinals, he can now negotiate a new contract. Which actually does make some sense, because as of 2022 season, he's going to earn a base salary of $965,000. But he's also going to get a $4.5 million roster bonus, which is fairly guaranteed on the 5th day of the league year. Murray is actually going to be taking home about $5.4 million in actuality. So Murray is probably planning on wanting a new deal before his 4th NFL season. He does have a recent present to refer to, which is early in August of 2021. Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen received a 6-year extension worth $258 million. And he also has a good chance of making his case, because in his past 3 seasons in the NFL, Murray has been named Rookie of the Year and has been to 2 Pro Bowls on Pro Bowl selection. So do I think that's a big thing? Is that the reason why he wants to? If that's what Murray wants. Now Murray did respond yesterday about this whole thing, about the whole story, and he posted on his Instagram yesterday saying, all of this nonsense is not what I'm about, and vowed to grow and get better. And this happened during Super Bowl Sunday. So, basically, he responds recently as sources described Eric's Cardinals quarterback, according to Chris Morrison of ESPN, as a self-centered, immature, and someone who points fingers. Kyler Murray wrote on his Instagram post, I played this game for the love of it, my teammates, everyone who has helped me get to this position that believed in me and to win championships. All of this nonsense is not what I'm about. Never has been, never will be. Anyone who has ever stopped between those lines with me knows how hard I go. Love me or hate me, but I'm going to continue to grow and get better. Morrison reported via sources Sunday that Murray, who scrubbed any reference to the Cardinals from his Instagram account recently, is frustrated with the franchise. Was embarrassed by it. Well, we already went through this. And meanwhile, Cliff Bears said, okay, we're kind of reading some of the same stuff. So it's kind of like, I think this is just, we're kind of reading some old hats reading. We're just clearing up some stuff. Okay, said here, Murray had recently cleared his Instagram account of all but 2 posts. One of him in an Oklahoma Sooners uniform from 2018, and another included 9 pictures of him from this year's Pro Bowl. Okay, yeah, we're going back. Yeah, it's some of the recent stuff. But the being thing about this season is the Cardinals have made it to the playoffs for the first time, as Kyler Murray has been the quarterback of his team. And this was a kind of like how they kind of were going to go about this. So I don't know. So big question is who looks. There is a thing on First Take that said which side looks worse, Kyler Murray or Arizona Cardinals in this whole situation. I mean, I don't know which one is going to feel bad. Like, there's a lot of things about the Cardinals. I don't know who's to blame in that situation. I still think, like, Kyler Murray still has, I mean, I don't think everyone was Kyler Murray's fault in that situation. It was kind of Kyler Murray's fault in that one. I don't know how to feel about this. Jeez. So, I don't know. How would you feel? I don't know about this one. So, I say the big thing is it's going to be interesting to see what happens next. Okay, recent reports have come out that apparently the Super Bowl 56 had an estimated 101.1 million TV viewers, which is actually up from last year's game, which had an audience of 92 million, which was the lowest since 2006. The Nielsen company also said another 11.2 million streamed the game, which put the total audience at 112.3 million people. So, in actuality, Nielsen said that 99.2 million people watched the game on NBC, and another 1.9 million watched on the Spanish language network Telemundo. So, which is actually something which, and this game was a thing. Actually went down the wire like most of the games were this season, and the competitiveness of both of them kind of did up the viewership, because that was a big thing. Like, everything ended up being more like, I can understand that, because that was a big thing. So now the question is, what's going to happen now what's going to happen with the Rams? Because the big thing is, this was an all or nothing year. They don't have they will not have they won't have their first round pick this year because they traded that to Detroit. The big question is that among their all the players they have, let's see. Accordingly, there was a report from NBC during the Super Bowl pregame show that Aaron Donald might retire if the Rams actually won. It's just something that Aaron Donald has neither confirmed nor denied after the game. So, Sean McVay actually openly pondered his coaching future last week. His comments coming on the heels of sources reiterating to ESPN's Lindsey Fury that the coach has actually considered a move to the broadcasting booth. I mean, that would be interesting to see that happening. But I think that Monday, as Rams COO Kevin Demoff actually was asked about those situations Monday, but he chalked them up to the grind of a long season, projecting an absence of concern. All right, here we go. Demoff said this: "You're talking about 26 to 27 straight weeks in which these guys had maybe a bye weekend off. And you talk about an Aaron who works relentlessly at his craft in the offseason, and for Sean, who's burning the midnight oil. I think all these guys are wiped, and I think when they get to this point, the gas tank is empty. Someone once told me, the hardest thing about winning the Super Bowl is you wake up the next morning and it's the next season. It's over. And to be fair, I think that's daunting to some degree when you wake up this morning and realize I've got to do it all over again and you don't have the energy. So I think the talk is actually natural. When you look at someone like Aaron Donald and what he's accomplished, that was obviously a legacy piece. McVay talked probably about trying to find an ideal balance between his professional and personal lives as he prepares to get married this summer and eventually start a family. Demoff also said about that, I would agree. I don't think Sean's current pace is sustainable in terms of how much work he puts in if you want to have a family. But I think the one thing is, these guys all love football. They love being around each other. They feed off each other. Sean has said all year, we win with our people and they win together. I think all of those are natural questions that are hard to answer in the moment and speculate. A month away, 2 months away from everybody, I think feels will feel a lot better. Demoff gave non-specific answers to separate questions about whatever a team could give McVay and Donald contract extension this offseason. McVay's current deal on that of general manager Les Snead both run through the 2023 season. While many things have changed over the past 5 years, we've had unbelievable, unwavering leadership from Sean and Les, and it goes without saying that we'd like that to continue. Donald has three years and $55 million, none of which is guaranteed to remain on his 2018 extension. I have to look. I think he's got a couple years left, said of Donald. The one thing I remember from 2019 is when you get to the Super Bowl, everybody is worthy of having things looked at and be improved. And that year we lost so certainly when you win, everybody on the team is probably deserving of a raise of merit. I think it goes back to the question of how do you put together a team that can go compete in 2023 and 2024, and how do you reward the people that deserve to be rewarded, which is all 53 players and all 20 coaches. Okay, give me 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. I gotta put on some glasses because if I'm gonna read through this, I gotta need to put on some glasses. All right, we're back. Yeah, just need to put on my glasses because I'm like, my eyes are starting to have a hard time. So, okay, the Rams face big contract questions with some of the other players that were key to their Super Bowl run, including wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr., who is a pending free agent. Beckham's situation could be further complicated with the knee injury that he suffered late in the first half Sunday after he scored the game's first touchdown, which is possibly a torn ACL, according to sources. It's believed to be a torn ACL, which is very unfortunate if that is the case. McVay actually had no update because this was early Monday morning, so this came out early in the afternoon. McVay says, in regards to that injury, my heart goes out to him. Love Odell. Really grateful for all the many contributions he made. We wouldn't be champions without him. Outside linebacker Von Miller is another marquee player who's scheduled to become a free agent. Left tackle Andrew Woodworth has a $17 million cap number that can put him in danger of being released if he doesn't retire beforehand. Fellow O-line starters Austin Corbett and Brian Allen are also unsigned beyond 2021. The Rams are currently over the 2022 salary cap and aren't projected to pick within the top 100 in April's draft, having traded their next two first rounders for quarterback Matthew Stafford, as well as this year's second and third rounders for Miller. ESPN's Kevin Seifert had the Rams last in a recent ranking of each team's offseason capital, which actually makes sense but part of the joy in this group is, Demoff says about that is, but part of the joy of this group is finding a way to do things that are uncommon. That's what I love about working with Sean Ingles and Vice President of Football and Business Administration, Tony Pastores, and with Stan Kroenke. The impossible becomes possible. I've seen some charts that show off-season resources, and if there's a bottom of it, we're like below it. We're off on the other page, but at the same time, I think we'll have 8 draft picks. We'll look at the salary cap and what can be done, but the one thing I will say, and this is such a credit to Stan and Sean and Les and the players, this is a place where players want to be our own players, other players. And when you see the scenes from last night, this will only make it more desirable to be an Los Angeles Ram. And when you start with that premise, there are a lot of things you can get done to improve your chances to hopefully be back to this press conference next year. Another off-season mission for the Rams will be capitalizing on what DeMoff called an amazing opportunity to build up what remains a lukewarm fan base in Los Angeles, a market that the Dodgers and Lakers have long owned. DeMoff reiterated that it won't happen overnight. Obviously, this gives us a leg up to really go build our band, our team, our organization. Maybe when you walk into a school, the kids are a little bit more excited to see you, but our work in LA is just starting. We've had an amazing first 6 years, but all of that is the table stakes for being a successful franchise here, and I expect us to work just as hard as this offseason, work harder to build fans, to go compete, to develop that next generation. That's going to take a ton of work from everybody, but it can probably wait a couple days. Well, yeah, that is going to be a big thing there, is will the Rams end up actually... That is the big thing. It's like the big thing was the Rams were looking to be... Because that's one of the big things about when the Rams moved to LA. Same thing with the Rams. Like any team that moves to LA, like any sports team that tries to move to a team like to a place like LA or Vegas or something, like the big thing should have been like the big thing was going to be trying to at least appeal to the city of Los Angeles, because LA, they don't like teams that are like the second best. They want a team that wins and wins like now. So I mean, it was a slow start at first because you had Jeff Fisher at that time frame. They had Jeff Fisher. Like Jared Goff at first was not looking very good, promising. So it was a thing that they needed to at least build on for a while. So for Rams ended up getting it done. So hopefully that is something that helps them help them get an audience in that city. So who knows? All right, let's move away from football. I say we'll probably come back to this in April, but let's get into the actual situation. Let's talk about the UFC and their most recent event. Which is UFC 271 between Adesanya taking on Robert Whitaker for the second time in their careers. On the main card, big one in the main card was, of course, we have to talk about, before the main event, we have to talk about earlier on in the card, where Jaron Cannonier took on Derek Brunson in pretty much a title eliminator. In the very first round, Derek Brunson actually had a good chance of actually winning this fight via submission over Jaron Cannonier, but Cannonier was able to it came out so close towards the end, actually stopped him this was so late in the round that Jaron Cannonier pretty much was able to at least control himself, and actually was able to at least get saved by the bell. Because if he had at least another 20, if it was 20 seconds or maybe 3 seconds, there was a chance he could have tapped out a whole lot quicker. And in the second round, Cannonier would knock down Derek Brunson and pretty much would lay him out with some strong elbows, which pretty much made him bounce his goal off the ground like a basketball. He was out. Next up, we got the big boys in the heavyweight division, where Houston's own Derek Lewis took on Tai Tuivasa, who is on a come up in the heavyweight rankings, and Tai Tuivasa would end up taking the win, would end up getting the surprising win by hitting him with this mean elbow, which ended up giving him the win and actually helped him moving up to the heavyweight rankings. I think when the new rankings come out, Tai Tuivasa might come in third in the rankings, and he's now probably two more fights away from taking on Francis Ngannou for the heavyweight title, which actually is a possibility. Which actually is a possibility, and that's gonna be an interesting day. And what's gonna happen with Ngannou, if Ngannou and Jones ever happens, because both of them are probably debating on fighter pay and stuff. Next, and then finally in the main event for the UFC middleweight title, Israel Adesanya defends his title against the former kingpin of middleweights, Robert Whitaker, Reaper. He's gone. After losing the belt, he actually would beat 3 consistent opponents: Monin, Cannonier, Brunson, and I believe Kevin Gastelum before even competing this one. And this fight was back and forth for at least a good 3 fights. I say it took 3 fights. It was like a back and forth, and it is actually somewhat of a, the big thing was pretty much the surprise of possibly the way the fight went. I believe it was going to be like a back. I think they were expecting this to be. Because the fight ended with That's um. I'm sorry if I'm blanked out here because I'm like, because I actually there was a there was something on with Adesanya. Oh, here it is. I was looking at the headlines. It was like, where is that headline at? So I've watched it, and it was about how they pretty much outpoint Struck. That was kind of the thing there because there was some cases like the crowd booed decision because they fought because of like what happened. Because they pretty much like as they say in this one of the first two judges actually ended up having Jacob Montalvo and Doug Crosby. She had Adesanya win the first 3 rounds, and Whitaker ended up taking the last 2. As Judge Mike Broutron actually had Adesanya win all but the second round, which he actually gave to Whitaker. But in terms of significant strikes, like Adesanya ended up outlanding Whitaker 79-59, so significant strikes. Whitaker ended up landing more significant strikes at 38-36. However, Adesanya would outland Whitaker in strikes to the legs as leg kicks because earlier in that fight he pretty much hit. There was like clear like bruising and swelling to Whitaker's left leg, especially early on in the bout because the big thing is like Adesanya's length and reach is a huge counter to Whitaker's boxing, so he was just able to just keep seeing him with leg kicks to just keep away from him. Whitaker, however, did land 4 takedowns, which actually matched Marvin Vettori for the most by an opposing fighter in against Adesanya in UFC so far. So right now now it is the big question is going to be like what's going to happen now in this fight. What's going on? The big one was going to be late into the land. Is going to be landing into the end of no. UFC President Dana White actually said that Adesanya winning 3 rounds to 2 was the call, was right, and actually he saw no controversy decision. In the post-fight news conference, Dana White said he's a champ, he continues to win, that's just the way it works, the more you win, the more you do, the more you make. So, last time we seen these two fight, besides the last time we saw these two fight, Adesanya ended up stopping Whitaker in the second round via knockout at UFC 243 in Australia in October of 2019 to end up winning the belt. The Nigerian-born New Zealander is undefeated at middleweight, but he did drop a unanimous decision to Van Light heavyweight champion Jan Blachowicz in UFC title fight at UFC 259 last March. So as a result of this, he's now picked up his 4th middleweight title defense again. His 4th middleweight title defense win over his rival, but he does argue that this should be considered his 5th defense because before that fight against Whitaker, that was he came in as the interim champ before he ended up unifying the title against Whitaker. So, after the fight, Adesanya ended up calling out Jared Canner, who just beat Brunson earlier, for a title fight in June. In June, Adesanya said he's not sure about if him and Whitaker would go for a 3rd time in the future. Adesanya said this about that is we'll see. The division is filled with killers. It's filled with killers, but I'm looking forward to fresh meat, which is true because before this fight, he actually did. No, wait, never mind. It was Robert Whitaker actually defeated Darren Till, Kelvin Gastelum, and Ken Neer. So, Robert Whitaker, the New Zealand-born Australian, has won 12 of his past 14 fights overall. Whitaker, who is fairly who is 31 right now, held either the interim or undisputed UFC middleweight titles from 2017 to 2019. The Reaper, a former Ultimate Fighter winner, was the first ever Australian-born UFC champion. Whitaker said after the fight, "You can see in this fight how much I've come from first fight to the point where I think I could beat him. I'm just excited for the future. I believe there is no ceiling for me." Whitaker said it was inevitable that there will be a third fight with Adesanya. "I think I am the person to beat him. My mission stays the same, beat the next guy and then the next guy." I mean, that's going to be a question now, is what's going to happen now and next. I think it's going to be Adesanya versus, I said for now, it's going to be Adesanya versus Cannonier. And I think eventually we will see probably him and Adesanya and Bronson go at it again eventually in the future. And then I guess whoever is up next in the middleweight division, moving up in the middleweight division. So actually, let's look at that divisional rankings here, and let's look at who's in. This is in late January, so we're gonna go to middleweight. And I think this is ESPN's rankings. So both these two have already fought. So we got Cannonier. I say somehow we're going to see Cannonier again. I say Derek Bronson eventually. I say after maybe 1 or 2 more fights. We could see a possible rematch of Paul Costa, who's at 6 right now, who hasn't fought anyone except Marvin Vettori, and he lost that one by unanimous decision. So actually, that might be a while. Darren Till is a possibility. Darren Bronson, Darren Till, Jack Hermanson, who's in UFC. Sean Strickland is the number 1. So that's something. I was about to say there's Gary Musasi, but it's actually, I forget he's the middleweight champion for Bellator. And actually, I'm surprised that we should, if we're really gonna be crazy about, if we want to see something interesting, have a mixture of UFC, Bellator, cross promotion fights, which would be interesting to see how that goes. Like the UFC champion Adesanya versus Musasi, the middleweight champion for Bellator. That would be an interesting fight to see. So that's how this weekend has been. The weekend's been a great weekend for watching sports and stuff. So it's interesting to see how this goes right now. I guess let's go into for next. Let me go into what's going to be the next segment here, I guess. Okay, I guess Capcom. Actually, let's talk about Capcom having this. Let me see about this Capcom countdown thing. Because apparently there's a Capcom announcement, and there's actually this countdown clock that's going on. That's going on right now, I think. And I think it's going on right this second. And it's right now, it's like, this is something that happened a week ago. Basically, just a couple days ago. And it's right now, it's at 5 days, 12 hours. And the weekend of that is, according to a lot of people, it's a mystery. We're wondering what it's for. And one of the big things is this a possibility of a new what is the game going to be? And a lot of people have made a lot of things. Is it the possibility of Street Fighter 6? Because the thing about this is, this was going to be the same time that Capcom Cup was going to be held, which was supposed to be started, which was going to start this Thursday, running onto the 20th, which is this Sunday. But it ended up canceling that event this year because of the rising COVID cases, because of because of the rising corona cases. So because of that, what's gonna happen next? So is the countdown like a? Because according to a lot of people, is it like a Resident Evil announcement? Is it It's according to some people, is it Street Fighter 6 finally getting its financial like showing off that. Speaking of, but it's also 2022. This year is the series' 35th anniversary, so it could be an announcement of a new game. I mean, I wouldn't be I won't say it's. I mean, it'll be surprising if they somehow make like a whole never. I mean, they announce something different with the new series, with another series. Like they could make like another remaster of like Street Fighter. They probably release like, they don't make a release of like Street, because there is like a multiple. Because actually, Capcom hasn't released anything significantly new in a minute. So it could be like one game. There's also a possibility of like, because there's also a possibility of like them announcing like more DLC about the new DLC for Resident Evil Village. Another expansion about from Monster Hunter Rise, which is actually pretty much cool. There is a small chance that could be like finally they remastering Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which is which is a real Hail Mary, but it would be surprising if it is that Hail Mary, because of the free MVC2 movement. So, I mean, that could get people talking. But there was a massive data breach at Capcom, and Street Fighter 6 was among those names, including Dragon's Dogma 2, Resident Evil 4 Remake, which actually wouldn't be surprising if they did make that. Monster Hunter 6, a new Monster Hunter, which is actually a big Marvel, which is a big game for Capcom. It's like a huge game for Capcom. Like, Monster Hunter is a big franchise. But I do want to see is the possibility of this. They could announce like a whole nother. I mean, it is a possibility they could make. It could be like the announcement of like the return of a brand new game in a series that's been gone for a while, like something like Darkstalkers, or like maybe a whole new Marvel vs. Capcom game. Like, we don't know what it is. So yeah, this is a match going on 5 days and 11 hours. So it's so yeah, that means at 6. That means if we're thinking about it, 5 days, in exactly 5 days, at 12 midnight. I mean, it's at 12 midnight on possibly the 20th. We might know what it is. We will know what it is. So we don't know what it could be. So we don't know exactly what it could be. So there's a lot of things. So yeah, there's I don't know. That is interesting. I'm hoping what I wanted to be. I'm interested. I would like it for it to be like. I honestly would. I wouldn't mind if it's a new Street Fighter game. If it's a new Street Fighter, like it's something. I would wish it. I wish it was like another Mega Man game, maybe Mega Man X game. Because that would be something I would love to try to play. Because I never like really sat down and really played a full Mega Man game. I know I did have like one Mega Man game that was on a Game Boy, and I just didn't know what the heck was going on. So I actually do want to play a Mega Man. I actually might want to try at least play an actual Mega Man game in the future. I know I should play a I know it's like I heard of Mega Man, but I've never like really played a Mega Man game like that. Like played through. So but I do want to play through a Mega Man game just to like know what exactly it is about, because, and I know that sounds weird as hell. Like, how do you not know how to play never play a Mega Man game in your life? You don't know what it is, but I'm just sorry. But I do want to pop on it one time, or just at least, pretty much play through that, and also like stuff like also play with but yeah, that is a but yeah, that's so yeah, that's gonna be a big one. I guess we're gonna move. I think that's gonna be it for that. So that's pretty good. Short time. We've been on this for about an hour and a half. So, well, Money Club, thank you guys very much for watching this video. Watching the video, or at least listening in. Hope you guys enjoy this episode of the podcast. What are you guys' thoughts on the whole Super Bowl? What are you guys like favorite commercials? Like, let me know. We're gonna be doing more. I'm gonna do more podcast episodes during this time frame. Usually, I usually don't. I probably won't follow much. I'll probably keep up with some basketball stuff. I might try at least. I might focus a little more on hockey, but I'm gonna at least try to focus on a lot more other things during the free time. So, thank you guys very much for joining in on this episode, and keep on being amazing. Peace out, y'all. Goodbye and good night.